Hello everybody, my name is Chaosnix and we will look at a little video here. I've watched a funny little video of a channel I like called Robots and Autism, and it made me think about some things, some common misconceptions. I will link it in the description. I really love the channel. I do, as you will see in this video, disagree with some points, not as in like an opinion or to call out them, but it's just a very common misconception when it's about robots or, in quotes, AI, machine learning and, stuff like that, how it works. And yeah, without too much talk before we'll get just right into it, it will make sense over time. Yeah. First point. Robots in movies. Exactly. I am prepared. Robots in movies. What are robots in movies? What are traits do they have? Maybe 1, 2? Maybe we'll list 3 traits. Who knows? We'll see. Now the first trait. They're bad at emotions. They don't understand laugh. A calculator can laugh. Laugh, humor. It's a calculator. What is it supposed to do? Love me? No. Am I even recording my audio? Yes, I am. Good. Yeah, it's just a robot. It can't. That's what makes us human. And that's what people assume. Emotions. It what makes us human. Well, yes. Robot can't really feel emotions the way we do. At the end of the day, they are just outputting text based on their programming. Machine learning, AI, that stuff. It's nothing different than somebody saying like, hey, if somebody writes hi, you output hi. Or you have like a dice roll, and sometimes you output hello. Stuff like that. Sometimes you output hi, sometimes hello, based on random chance. Go. And then for every single possible text, you put in a possible answer, the correct one, maybe, best case. And if you did that for every single wording, then yeah, you would basically just have ChatGPT. It would be the same. It wouldn't be AI or machine learning, and you just did all of that by hand. It would be insane amount of effort, but the output would be the same. It is just a way to program stuff. I've been gone on a tangent again. Bad at emotions. So yeah, like in the same way that, yeah, I think my point came across. We'll talk about it in a second more. They're good at math. Science. Well, yeah, makes kind of sense. The reason why ChatGPT knows so much about math and stuff is because they just put a lot of scientific papers into that program that then puts it out. Fun fact, I am doing a little paper myself at college or like university, and one thing they said, don't use AI for questions. Don't ask it, hey, how does this work? How's that work? Because very likely they got it from a research paper. And by taking that from that research paper, you putting it yourself, you're plagiarizing, because effectively you're copying the data through a tunnel and putting it in your own thing without proper citations, and that's, well, plagiarizing. Now, good. But yeah, good at math science, something that comes off often. They don't tire. Well, they're robots, they don't get tired. They might run out of battery. Now, how realistic is it that a robot can walk around and do stuff with just a battery? I don't know. But then again, I don't know a lot of things. Maybe like, it kind of makes sense. Maybe if the main processor isn't actually at the computer, that would be very likely. It's just, that's the robot. In real life, it would probably just be controlled from like a data center where you have like hundreds of data polluting the world, and they calculate how that robot behaves and they send it to the robot, and the only battery there is actually the movement parts. I guess that's the thing they get wrong in movies as well there. Where it's like, oh no, the robot got destroyed. Well, yeah, it's just the execution part. That's not the actual computing unit. You wouldn't put an actual computing unit in that thing. That would be a bit ridiculous. Now, one thing that all of these things got to mind. Robots in movies. Bad at emotions, good at math, science, don't tire. That's just me. Spoiler alert, except the last part, I tire very fast. That's just me, and I think that's why I didn't get the whole like, oh, it's a robot or sympathizing with AI or machine, because I am bad at emotions, I'm mildly autistic, I'm good at math, science, and a lot of things that the robots in those media struggle with, I personally struggle with or struggled with myself. I think to accurately describe it, 15-year-old me is basically how you would see those robots in media, apart from the not tiring one. I tire a lot. So, yeah, it's always been a bit weird to me that, you have that portrayed as robots, because it's effectively what I'm trying to say is, you just took a human, made him or her mildly autistic, and then put in it like an exoskeleton, there's a mechanic skeleton around it. But yeah, now we go to my next point. This is a bit to illustrate the differences in how machine learning and stuff works. Or like, in quotes, AI. It's not really intelligence. Again, it is just, you will see it in a moment. It's just a way to program it. You will see it in a moment. Now, first of all, this is a little maze. It's very bare bones. This is the start. This is the goal. How do you get there? Very simple. Go forward, then you go left. That is direct programming, where you know the use case perfectly well. Oh, there goes my pen. I don't need it anyway. Where you just go forward and you go left. Easy. This is not hard. Now, let's say you don't know the maze and you just have a general program. There is a maze thing where you just go forward. Okay, bitches, I got my pen back. The magic of editing. I hate it. I wanted to make it one cut. God fucking damn it. Okay, back on track. There's this very easy algorithm. I'm gonna call it algorithm. It's basically, if you go in a maze. Okay, I got my pen back, and I'm gonna redo that part. Okay, we have done the direct part. Now, maybe if you go in the maze from the get-go, there's one rule to make it to the exit 100%, just stick to the right side. Because that way, as you will see here, you always go to the point. If you have like any way where this doesn't lead to a goal, this is just like a way out, by sticking to the right side, you follow one wall of it, you will eventually reach your goal or the other exit, or if there's no other exit, you just go back to the start. But you will reach it in that order. Either you reach the exit first, or if there is none, you go back to the start. It's a very simple loop that I've just like thrown together here in a few seconds. Let's just go through it. So you have a loop. You have a loop. Then if you're next to a wall, like here, you go forward. If you're not next to a wall, you turn right. Well, not here, this doesn't apply. If face in wall, landed there, you turn right. Okay, so you go forward, turn right. Next time there's no next to wall at the right side, of course I meant. So you turn again, not in a wall, then you go forward. Yeah, you just do the same thing again, as it's written here. Very easy, it's the baseline thing. This is how it's done. Now, this is fairly, you had the direct programming. You had the this is how you solve every maze programming. How would the machine learning thing do? Now, as you see here, it's kind of the same. Now, machine learning, the way it works is basically you put in a bunch of data, and then with the data, you program it to, transform the data in a certain way, and then basically, in a way, write the program at the end based on the data. Now, what it would do here in this specific case, it would just probably do this. If you've written a good code here for your machine learning code, at the end of the day, it's just a program. Machine learning, not machine learning, it is all just a program, nothing more, nothing less. ChatGPT isn't any more special than the program run your calculator. It's just has a slightly different approach, And of course, there's a whole bunch of kind of worms with the data centers, the water usage, the pollution, the resources, like the RAM prices rising, and of course that code doesn't come from nowhere. Oftentimes, the way for example ChatGPT works, Facebook's AI, they take a bunch of stuff that doesn't belong to them, that is copyrighted, that people don't want copied, and they just take it. And just like here, oftentimes it just copies one of the things, because turns out there is only really two ways: either stick to the right wall or stick to the left wall, and it outputs one of them. In this case, okay, did stuff, and if you've written the program well, it outputs this. Easy. Now, the difference between this and this is, well, if you already have the program, like for example ChatGPT, well, it will probably just output the code for you. If you know how to write the code, this is just faster and easier. Like, it's not that hard to make a stick to the right wall code. And if you know the layout, well, go forward and then go left. Now, when it becomes more complicated, there are merits to this thing. And you could argue in a way even with direct programming, if you say like go outside and then based on the environment, this and that and this and that. It is a fine line where I'm also like confused a bit, because, well, there isn't like a hard line between not machine learning and machine learning coding. Like, is it machine learning if I input the numbers that it then calculates? Like, how abstract does it have to be? But that's a bit philosophical. And while I personally am studying computer science, I am not too big on machine learning. I don't care too much about it. But yeah, let's just go a bit forward. Homework example. How would this is a better example for ChatGPT. How would you list homework? Finish these sentences. Apples are blank. Bananas are. Sticks are. Now, you would probably say something along the line of apples are red, bananas are yellow, sticks are brown. That's a good assessment. Here is how the answers. Forgive me for not making yellow. It's yellow on that background. It's really hard to see. Here's how the answers would look like potentially with ChatGPT machine learning. Now, finish these sentences. Apples are red. No, some apples are red. Bananas are yellow. Well, bananas are yellow. Sticks are brown. Well, sticks are brown. That's how a human would answer it, based on how you've perceived, the world around you, how you've learned words, how you've everything, based on your prior knowledge. Basically, that's what you put out there. Maybe your teacher even told you, like, yeah, this is about colors, put in just the right colors. It doesn't explicitly say this. Now, how might an AI answer this? Well, apples are red, yeah. Bananas are green and sticks are brown. Why did it say the bananas are green? This is something that actually happens a lot. Why does it say bananas are green? If you want an example on how it happens in real life, I once looked up how do I send delayed messages in Discord. And unbeknownst to me, the first thing in Google was the AI summary thingy. And it said, well, type your message in Discord. So I did. Then hold the send icon. I did. And then you can choose the date for when you send the delayed message. At that point, I sent out a message, and it wasn't delayed. And at 3 a.m., I very likely woke up my friend with a Discord message. Now, why did it say that, even though it didn't work? It's very simple. I checked it afterwards, and when I went on there, let me draw it here just so it's not too boring. Instead of finding a website, you had like the AI link me to kind of like a forum, like an official one, for this thing. Suggestions. It was a suggestion. It was someone writing, what would be a really good feature if this was true? In Discord, imagine in Discord you can hold that button and then you can click it. Now you can choose the time, and the AI saw all that and, outputted that. It just left out the earlier part because it was like a summary. It let out it would be cool if this is true, you can do this. If in the future, or something, you can do this. And it, interpreted it wrong. So why are bananas green? Well, the thing that was fed into like this program, you had tons of stuff, tons of sentences about apples being red, sticks are being brown, but the only mention of bananas. You have some green, some other stuff, some yellow, but the answer that it ultimately decided on was bananas are yellow in the early stages of their age. Or bananas are green and then later on yellow. So it needs to decide on one of those things based on its programming, and for some reason or another, based on its programming, because at the end of the day it's a program, nothing else, it output green. Yeah, that's kind of it. And the one also thing that I wanted to say back here, for example, at the end of the day, just like there's thousands ways to do this, you can make it more complicated, less complicated. You could even like say here, like, oh, let's start going left, and then like make a little whoopsie or like circles or something, and then go to the exit. There are a million ways to do this. There are a million like efficient ways. This is just one example. And again, there isn't really a super hard line. I'd personally say, the basic idea that I remember from back in the day is you feed it data and it does something by itself. But at the end of the day, it's still just executing code. And instead of, in a way you could argue the data you give it is also just, it's a bit much. You know what? Let's just focus on the topic of the video. Robots, AI, autism. First picture, boom. The actual movie Robots. This movie doesn't have anything to do with AI or robots. It's... One second. Excuse me. Ugh. A little cough there. This movie doesn't have anything to do with AI. It is just... It's also an old movie that most people didn't use the word back then too much. It is just what if humans had robot bodies and then, they do stuff. At the end of the day, this isn't really how robots would behave or are. For a second, I thought I started streaming. Am I streaming? No, not streaming. Okay, good. Robots. It's just, what if humans had robots' bodies? They behave like humans, they act like humans, and really, it's kind of just humans. What if humans had robot bodies? Now, another robot. We can leave this up here as well. It's nice. Zenyatta from Overwatch. Again, for all intents and purposes, that's just a human, but with a robot frame. He has like emotions, thoughts, connections. Unless it's all just, again, how it would be in real life, just a front, and it's just a program outputting what it's programmed to do. This is really, they are effectively in the way they act and are portrayed, and also in the way they are built, Everything is self-contained. There's nothing controlling them from the outside, and they're all super complex stuff. I do think effectively they just took the concept of human, but again with a robot skin on it. This isn't in no way like thought like, oh, how does it work? Specifically also because it's such an old game and it's just based on, older movies and media and stuff like that. Now, let's go to our next thing. Ethan. This is more of the example that I've mentioned earlier, which just fits all that stuff. This is just a mildly basically, you've taken a mildly autistic 15-year-old kid and brought it to war. That's kind of just it. Walks past certain stuff, but is still considered part of the team and this and that and this and that. Really, you have that typical story of robot learns emotions and through love and connection with other people, they grow and they've learned how it works and they've integrated and they do useful stuff now. Like, I don't know, people realize, oh, you being good at math and science is actually really helpful. Or stuff like that. It's a bunch of bollocks. But yeah, this is a good example for the earlier part. And then we have the core of this video, which I researched a bit about. And then I found this. When I read up articles about this kind of stuff. The Black Mirror episode Be Right Back? I think it's be right back. I'm not actually fully sure anymore. But to recap this episode, on the left side here, you see Martha? Martha. You see Martha. If I got the names wrong, I'm sorry. It doesn't really matter. It's fictional anyway. You see Martha here. And on the right side, you see Ash. It's very simple. Martha and Ash were in a relationship. Ash was highly addicted to social media and basically just ignored everything and everybody around him and was kind of dismissive and not really the nicest boyfriend. And they like moved to like a faraway place. Now, Ash dies. We don't really know how. Now, this is the fucker. We'll come to it. Now, what she does then is, this is by the way a 9-year-old show, so I'm really impressed that it so accurately displays how stuff is nowadays, even though, according to Wikipedia, it also serves as a bit of an inspiration for something I will mention on later. She now goes to an AI chat service, basically. What they do is, they have like a program that's, how it would be nowadays. It's trained with a whole bunch of conversation data and basic data and like basic behavioral stuff. And then you input all the social media aspects and cookies and stuff like that of your dead couple. I think it's just social media stuff. Like, for example, the Facebook page. And then based on that, you get, a text messaging program where you can message them and you get answers as if that person, it imitates real life Ash after he died. Now, of course, this isn't perfect because, he was a bugger who didn't care about anything in the world and just was on social media and was kind of dismissive and didn't really listen to his girlfriend in any way. Like, literally, he just didn't listen when she talked or ignored her when she was, like, standing out in the rain because he was too busy being on Facebook, with kind of a dick move. Where was I? Fuck. Yeah, but yeah, she puts it in chatbot. It isn't really fully accurate, but it helps her grief. Specifically also, something I left out, because she's pregnant. She found out about that after he died. So, yeah, she used that kind of like as a way to grieve or to like handle her grief, to go about it. Maybe not the most healthiest way. So, after some time, she upgraded to something they offered, a call service. Basically, instead of writing your text where, you have a program that is straight on behaving a certain way and then gets like social media things as like, this is how that person writes, acts, and talks, and then based on that talks to you. Of course, still a lot of it very likely would be, today is based on make the person want to stay here. You want to make them feel things, emotions. It is kind of, drying you out. Now, she upgrades to talking. At the end of the day, that's just text-to-speech based on speech, and it's the same thing, but it feels more real because it's actual speech. And she goes more and more into it. Basically, on the call 24/7, she's like really distraught when she drops her phone. And then later on, she gets an offer, a very expensive offer of a prototype. This is what you actually see here on the right. It's a thing that's like a blank slate robot kind of thing. And she gets it in like a huge package and it looks weird. And you put that in the bathroom, basically. And after some time, based on input from the outside, images, this thing comes out. A perfect or almost perfect visual replication of how her old lover used to look like. The only missing part is like a mole and facial hair, but that's about it. Else it's basically perfect. A perfect copy of Ash, at least visually. And the text is same with like text-based stuff, same with other stuff. Now over the time, she gets a bit like, she of course like has sex with him, talks to him, everything. But she also realizes this isn't Ash. Because Ash wouldn't talk to her all the time. Ash wasn't the perfect lover. Ash wouldn't like pick up stuff when stuff was down. Like he wouldn't pick up trash. He would, what he doesn't know, he was mostly on his phone, completely ignoring his girlfriend. This isn't Ash, not even like an imitation of him really. Just like based on social media. And of course, on social media, we're different people. So yeah, she gets very distraught, and then there's a scene at some point where she goes too tired of him and is like, go jump off a cliff. And he was like, okay, because he's a robot. He is very much programmed. That's the base programming they put in. Follow the orders. You are there for the pleasure of this person. This entire purpose is just replicate this. And if she says you should behave that way, well, she probably knows best. It's just base programming at the end of the day. The reason doesn't matter. That's just how the program works. And then he just says, okay. And as he's about to go down the cliff, she's like, the real Ash would have never done that, and complains about it. And at that point, because programming notice, oh, the real Ash behaves that way, I should change my behavior right now. This was wrong, direct feedback, that's how these programs work. He goes on his knees like, please don't make me do this, please, I beg you, I don't want to die, I want to live, please don't make me do this. And she starts screaming and is very distraught about this. Then, instead of having that, what actually happens is she, like it's a flashback to later on, she gets the child, she keeps the robot in the attic. Kind of like an old thing you don't really want to see, but you also don't want to get rid of it. She can't get rid of him. And she's very distraught, and the child is allowed to see him on the weekends, which is very weird, in my opinion, of course. And then at some point it's like, hey, it's my birthday, I really want to go upstairs. The child goes upstairs, talks to the robot, and is like, I know you don't need to eat. She bought a little cake with it. I know you don't need to eat, but I really want to have 2 pieces of cake, so I want to come up here. And the robot's like, oh, very smart girl. And, she's downstairs on the verge of tears, but then, goes up and joins these two as well anyway. And that's the story. She never really got over her death. Of course, it's a fictional story. They could write anything they want. This doesn't necessarily replicate how it is in real life. But the reason why I said this, the reason why I explained all this thing in such detail, is because this is how it works in real life. At no point is this thing conscious. It is still, at the end of the day, the base program which says hey, you have a base program, this is the base how you behave, and just move the background in a bit. And now with the input you got from the social media and the description of this woman, behave based on that. Which is also a good thing, because the original was kind of an ass, and he was just a yes man. In a way, he's just a yes man with flavor. Yeah, she never really got over it. She grieved. Very likely, without this thing, without all this AI chat shit, she probably would have gotten over it over time. Also in the show, it's very much emphasis on how she got more and more secluded. And you see it, of course, also in real life to a certain degree with, revive a dead relative. At the end of the day, it's just a program that says stuff based on the information you feed it. In addition to, the information you get at the very end of this is speech patterns. Very likely it just copies speech patterns, copies opinions, and then says a bunch of stuff. And I don't know. I think it's very distasteful. And I personally don't like it, but then again, it is just my opinion. I have to live with the fact that it's just my opinion. I wish this was just correct, but, we don't live in the reality. But yeah, this is a far more accurate portrayal based on how, anything that basically how large language models work, which is what he is. He just predicts the text that this is probably the correct text based on my programming and input. It is just a program. This isn't like a person at the end of the day. No matter how it looks, whether or not it's a text chat, whether or not you look at the raw program, the text chat based on inputs, the speech one combined with text-to-speech, and the whole functioning thing at the end of the day that also walks around, it's all the same. Nothing is any more feeling or unfeeling than the thing before. Or my previous example with the person writing everything by hand, there isn't really any difference, So yeah, back to my main point. The way that AI and stuff, and of course also that's another thing that I forgot to say, in in video games, you hear often AIs for the pathing, which is also, I forgot to mention that earlier, why I chose this example here. The difference, this is called AI in video games in a way. Of course, they have they can see the thing, they have more information, they have the base layout. At the end of the day, this is more how, in quotes, AI in video games works. It's more directly coded, but it's get called that. And I think that's also very harmful because people just don't realize how things really work and then actually interpret stuff more into it. For example, something that you hear often is like, hey, we could use AI to make the AI in video games say this or that or this and that. Not really realizing what they're saying because it's like, oh, I know this word. I've heard this word before. It's the AI says this or that or behaves this or that way. But at the end of the day, this has nothing to do with it. It's basically randomly the same word. There isn't really any connection. And I think people have tried it out, and the reality of how it would work at the end of the day, if you used AI in give better answers, they would still repeat. It would just calculate the same thing. Because you have two options. Either you have calculated the answers beforehand and put them in. Well, this is just worse than if a human did it, because a human could control it better and have reason, could adjust it based on other factors and oh, we want to do this thing later on. This isn't in the game yet. Well, the ChatGPT doesn't know that. Or you connect it to character AI. And yeah, that stuff is pretty uncreative. They can't make new stories or make new quests. It would, at the end of the day, just result in everything being the same. So it really is just the same in name, and I really don't like that. I think that's one of the reasons for this whole craze, that the name is similar. And of course other things about generative AI in media, which I personally, based on a variance of factors, which other people have said better than me, I disagree with some of the points, but if you just want the informational part, 1 second again. Fucking coughing from talking too much. If you just want the informational part, there is a Bricky video on arc raiders. I won't link it below. Maybe I'll do. Where of course, at the end of the day, he also puts a bit of an opinion in it at the end, which he expresses he doesn't really like. And I do agree. I think the information part is there good. But if you just want the raw information, I think that's fairly good. There are other people who have made even better videos. Again, the Arc Raiders video isn't perfect in where it talks about it. But yeah, I just thought I'd mention it. Yeah, else, I don't really have any videos to recommend. If you made it through to all this, hello, I love you. I hope you have a great day. Take care. I hope this, and I also want another part here is, I'm a person who gets stressed out by all this stuff a lot. Be it the lack of knowledge, which really bums me out, the hazard for stuff, how corporate it is, how at the end of the day, the reason why we have stuff like OpenAI and ChatGPT is because insane amounts of money flows into it. It is absolutely not self-sustainable. Not even close to right now. And yeah, it just all bumps me out. But I also wanted to make this video, and I wanted to just, have it done with. Yeah, if you've made it through the entire video, or even if you watch a few minutes of it, or just some fractions, I really appreciate it. Making stuff is hard. Sitting yourselves down to stuff makes it hard. At the end of the day, it is just a 35-minute recording that I'll have to slightly edit. It's not the world. If you want to create something, do it. There's a nice video on it. What to make instead of doom scrolling. I sincerely hope you get to make some stuff. I hope you do well. I wish you nothing but the best in life. Take care. Bye-bye.